Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're gonna walk you through the new UI, Contentstack's new UI. My name is Jaime Santos. I'm a solutions architect within the customer success team here at Contentstack, and I'm gonna be leading this webinar. This webinar, it's the business track, so I'm not gonna get into the technical details. My colleague Nick did the technical track earlier today. And we're going to be sending the recordings out to the attendees, but we will also be posting the recordings later on the community. As I said, I'm going to walk you through the new UI. I'm sharing my screen, so if you can confirm that you can see my browser right now, I'll get it started.
Looks good here.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Connor. Yeah, so as I said, I'm going to walk you through the UI, and I have prepared 3 profiles in Firefox. The reason behind it is because there are some things that are only shown depending on your role. The new UI does a very good job on showing you what you need to see, basically. We've done a lot of improvements and redesign on this UI based on customer feedback. And I'm going to show you some of those things and the new things that are only available in this UI. I'm showing here the administrator profile for a very simple reason. I want to touch on these things that you can see on the left panel here. Some of these are only available if you opt in, and I'm going to walk you through the different features that you get here. And obviously these are only available in the new UI. So if you're still using the classic UI, you won't have access to these options here. I'm going to start from the bottom. The first one is the developer hub. Again, this is a non-technical track, so I'm not going to get into the details here, but I want you to be aware that this is a new feature. And in here, you'll have custom applications that your team or third-party applications that you can install here. To simplify or to enhance your experience when using Contentstack. This is the place where you can see the applications. The next section here that I'm going to discuss is the automation hub. Again, I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but basically all you need to know here is that there's a way to define automations. And automations is nothing but a pipeline where you can automate different workflows. The typical example, which is actually the one that we cover in our documentation, would be a Slack notification every time a page is published to production. You could configure and set up that here, right? Obviously, that's something that you as an editor might not do. Maybe your development team or your systems team will do. But the point here is that this feature allows you to do that without actually developing any code. You just have a drag and drop builder that will allow you to set these automations. And the last option here that is new is the marketplace. And the reason I bring it up last is because you can install automations and apps from the marketplace. The marketplace is similar to an app store. And in here, you can find different existing starter packs, right? So your development team can start with some examples, right? You also have automations to implement workflows with most commonly used tools, and in the same way, you can find pre-built integrations with third-party systems, and just wanted you to be aware that this is a new feature where you can have access to, and you can find applications that might improve your editorial experience. So those are the 3 top new features that were released in the past few months. 2 of them are still in beta, so you need to opt in. And if you want to take a look at them, you can reach out to our support team, and they will happily enable those for your organization. So now we're going to get into the actual editorial interface, right, or the editorial experience. As an editor, you normally come into Contentstack after logging in, and you're presented with this screen. In here, I'm an administrator, so I'm going to switch to the editor view or the editor profile, and this is what you see. Right off the bat, you're going to see that you get a left menu here that it's available to you by clicking on the different options. As you can see, as I mouse over, you can navigate the menu using your keyboard. So if you're a keyboard person, you can just hit the right key shortcut and you'll get to the right section. And you can navigate the UI using your keyboard. The first thing that I want to touch on is the settings. Settings is something that you as an editor might not necessarily modify or access very frequently, but this does give you information about your stack. So for example, you can see the environments here. These are basically targets where you can deliver your content to. The most commonly used are production, staging, and maybe development. And this is just a section for you as an editor for informational purposes. You can also access the URL associated to each environment. So if you want to see one of your pages in one of these environments, you can grab this URL, paste it on your browser, and access it. In here, you can also see how many languages you support, right? If your digital property supports more than one language, this is where you will get access to your locales. And probably the most used feature on the settings section will be the trash. This is similar to the recycle bin that we are all used to. And you can come here to find things that you might have deleted by mistake, and you can restore them from here by with the click of a button. Again, the UI has focused on simplicity and usability. So as you can see, I can very intuitively filter things out, right, by clicking on the different options presented to me. If I want to see things that, you know, I deleted, I just filter those out like so. And from here, I can restore them back to where they belong. So that's from the settings perspective. There's a lot more things here that you would see if you were a developer or an administrator. Those were covered on the technical track of this webinar, and you will get a copy of the recording, and we will post the recording for that track also in the community. So if you're interested in those things, you can review those in that track. The next thing as an editor that you get here is your task view. And in here, basically, you get access to tasks that are assigned to you. For example, in this case, I have 4 of them. And again, the UI, presents the list in a very clean way, right? From here, you can filter out the tasks based on different criteria that are available to you to the left here. So for example, if you want to see what tasks I need to work on that, are going to be deployed to production, for example, or that I need to take action on, you can access them here. You can also use the table features of the new UI to sort things out, right? To organize your tasks like you like. And from the UI perspective, other things that are available here are informational elements, right? I'm going to show you later on when we are in the entries or in the assets section, how you can actually access the documentation from these places, right? And basically, the UI makes sure that you have all the information that you need to do your day-to-day job. So that's from tasks. Tasks are related to workflow. So when we cover the workflow experience in the editorial screen, we'll get to that, and we'll see how those tasks can be, added here for the different users. The next option here is the releases. Releases is nothing but a grouping of content that you might need to publish together for any particular reason. In this case, I created a webinar campaign. So let's say that for this webinar, I need to publish all these things at a given point in time. I would use a release for that. And, creating releases is very simple. You just click the new release button and you provide a name and a description. And then you can add items to the release. The typical example would be a Christmas campaign, like Black Friday, if you're doing some offers or some landing pages for a given marketing campaign, you could use a release for that. If you're planning, launching a new section of your website, you could use a release for that as well. And this allows you to basically do that, group content that needs to be published at the same time. The next option here is the publishing queue. In here, as an editor, you can access the latest publishing actions, and you can track what has been going on from a publishing perspective. So you can see who published what and to what environment. This is useful. Let's say you see a page that has been updated and you want to see who did that. You can come here and say, okay, let me see who published this page. Let's see if I published something recently. And again, all the tables and the experience is very seamless and cohesive. So you're going to get the same experience throughout. You're going to have the filters options here and the table of contents to the right. And from here, you can access the information that you're looking for. You can show the last 14 days, 30 days, or even provide with a custom range. You can, let's say you want to see what was published last weekend. You could use this option here to do that. And that's from a publishing queue perspective. So if you want to track what publishing actions took place in a given period of time, you can come here and check what happened. And then, we're going to switch to the actual content management portion of the UI, right? As an editor, you're going to spend most of your time in the entry section or in the asset section. The asset section, it's where you will manage all your multimedia content, right? If you're familiar with Contentstack, these are your videos, your images, your documents, and all these elements, right? From a UI perspective, you can search here and you can filter out to find the right assets. You can use folders to organize your multimedia assets. And, from here, you can access the different elements that are stored in the assets section. In here, you can upload pretty much any asset. And to do that, you simply click the new asset button and you can choose your file from your computer. That will allow you to bring in the multimedia assets that you might want to upload. You can also drag and drop from your desktop into this screen, and that will allow you to upload the asset by drag and dropping the file from your computer. And then once you do that, you have access to your assets in Contentstack. You can also filter by MIME type using these provided buttons up top. In this implementation, we only have images, documents, and some code files, but you get the idea. Likewise, when you're working with the new UI, you're gonna realize that as you select things or you work through it, the UI is gonna present you the right or the most commonly used actions with those items. So, for example, if I wanted to publish these 3 assets, the UI will give me a button here to do so. I can unpublish as well. I can reorganize and move these things to a folder if I wanted to, very easily move things around. And then, that will be if you want to do multiple assets at one time, you can select them and, those are the presented options. But then from an individual perspective, you just need to mouse over and we present you with a menu here that will also give you the access to the most commonly used actions that you can perform on the asset itself. That's from an asset perspective. I'm going to show you the detail view or the editor view of the asset. In here, you can manage things like the title, the description, and even add some tags if you want to organize your multimedia assets. You can also get access to the URL of the image. So if you want to see this image live, you just copy this URL, paste it on your browser, and you can access the image in this case. That's from an asset perspective, right? And here you will manage and you will control all your multimedia elements. And then we're going to switch to the meat of the content management system, which is the entries. Before actually I get into the entry editorial experience, I want to touch on the dashboard, right? You as an editor, this is very likely that this will where you will land every time you log in and you get into your stack. And in here, you will see, by default, you see what I'm showing you here. As you can see, there's 5 widgets. This dashboard is fully customizable, so you can remove those widgets or you can add your own. And basically, you can, depending on what your day-to-day workflow looks like, you can add more functionality here. If you remember when we showed the marketplace and the developer hub, you can install some of those applications that will give you extra functionality here. There's other areas where you can extend the UI, right? Which I'm going to show you later on the sidebar widget of the entries. But I wanted you to get an idea on what you can have on your dashboard, which is your entry point pretty much every time you access Contentstack. From here, you can see what's new, right? Like you can see some tips, and you can also get direct access to our documentation. And likewise, you can get access to the latest changes, either to your entries or to your assets. You have a list here by default of the latest, changes that were made to these elements. So again, as a content manager or as a business user, you're going to spend more of your time here in the entries screen. And I want to, I'm going to walk you through the different things that you can find here in the UI. So from the left, you can organize your content using the content types filter or labels, right? This will allow you to organize and to browse your entries easily. Content types is something that I'm not going to cover on this track, because as a content manager, you probably will get the content model built upfront for you. If you want to see more details about content types, you can watch Nick's track on the technical side of this webinar. But basically, the UI gives you a filter right off the bat where you can filter out all your entries using the content type. So if you want to see your footer, you just click on the footer, and the UI will show you all the footer entries. In this case, is only one. If you want to see your landing pages for blog, you just click on the different content types, and this way you can filter out and identify and find the different entries that you might need to work on. Also, you can search, right? So if you're looking for the homepage, you can do that, right? And from there, you can access your homepage. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but as I was filtering things out, the search box here got populated. And I'm going to touch very quickly on the search bar here. It's available for both assets as well as entries, right? So if I want to search for, let's say I want to search for homepage, right? I can do a free text search, and this is going to give me my home pages. In this case, I have some testing pages that I created, different languages for those. And if I were to be more granular on the search, I could say something like the following. I can say, okay, I need to search for, if I can type, for all my home pages, right? But also I want to make sure that I'm only getting, those that I manage, which probably are the ones in English. And then also maybe I want those that are ready for production, right? And I can hit apply, and I didn't get any result because it's in draft mode. So I'll go back, I'll do it again. Again, you filter out by content type. You choose your home page, right? Then you choose your language. And then you choose your workflow stage. And in this case, I'm going to use draft because that's the stage that the homepage is on. And from here, I can hit enter. And that's how you get to your page. So the idea behind this is that, you can be very granular when you search, and you can find your entries using a pretty advanced search option here. And the other interesting thing that you can do in the new UI, which is very, very useful, right? So let's say you always work on landing pages, right? I'm going to get one that has more, like the detailed pages, but only those that are in review mode, right? So let's say you're always reviewing landing pages. So from here, you can say, I want to find my landing pages that are ready for review, right? And from here, I can hit enter. And that's, the one that I will need to work on. Let's say like you as an editor, this is all you do. You review landing pages for your blog. You could save this search and call it landing pages ready for review, right? And that will save this search. So you come in tomorrow, go back to your entries, you're working on an FAQ page or you know, or on a demo or whatever, and you need to go back to the list of pages that require your attention, you can simply click here. And if I save the search, here we go. The save searches option shows up here. So you just click on that and it will rerun the search for you. So that's all I'm going to cover about search. It's quite powerful and it's pretty granular. You can do pretty crazy filtering there. And it works both for entries as well as assets, right? So if you want to search for an asset, let's say you want to find your Facebook icon, you can do that. You know, it will give you, you know, the results. Let's give it a second. There we go. You know, so the message I'm trying to convey here is that you can use this search box to find your entries or your assets, and you have a lot of options there. So carry on with the UI. You can also organize your content using labels. So for example, we have some global components, and this is kind of best practices here, right? So if you want to organize your content using labels, this is the way to go. And then the UI will present those labels to you, and you can access your entries as you click through the different labels. I'm going to use the homepage as an example in this track, and for that I'm going to switch quickly my tab here. This is the homepage that it's managed in that stack that I was showing earlier, right? We have a homepage with a header and a footer and some sections in between. So this is the page that I'm going to show you back here in my editor. This is the editorial interface or the entry editing screen. Again, this is probably where you spend most of your time when you're managing content. And in here, you're presented with the different fields that your content supports. So for example, the homepage has a title, has a URL, it has a promo bar, right? That it's here managing a rich text field. That will be your promo bar up here. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, right? And so on and so forth. So you as an editor, this is pretty self-explanatory. You just manage the content that you know that you can manage in the editor. And depending on the field that you're dealing with, the UI gives you the right option, right? So if you want to move things around, you can drag and drop. If you want to bring in something else to the page, you can do so. If you want to delete something and so on, right? This is pretty standard or pretty intuitive, right? The main content area, it's using modular blocks, and you know anyone that has worked with Contentstack knows what a modular block is, but basically is a repeatable piece of content that you can drop into the page and that you can move around. You know, you can move things up and down like you did for reference fields up here. And basically, this is the editorial screen, right? What I want to highlight is the outline up here. This is very handy for a content manager. You can just navigate your content by clicking on the different sections of the page, right? So let's say you want to work on your promo bar. You just click there and the UI will present you the field that contains the information for your promo bar. Likewise, let's say you're someone that focuses on SEO and search, right? If your content model allows for it, you will have an SEO and search field, right? And from there, you can skip all the content that is not relevant to you, maybe, and get right into editing the content that you own. And this outline will help you do that. Okay. From a UI perspective, I just want to touch on this specific field type, which is the JSON RTE, right? This is a new field type. It's pretty similar to the traditional rich text field, with a biggest difference, right? And without getting very technical, the biggest difference is that this field is really technology agnostic, right? Because behind the scenes, we're storing the data as JSON. And I don't want to get too technical, but basically that will allow you to present this content as HTML or as XML or whatever format your digital property might require the content to be presented on. The good thing, or the extra or the added features of this rich text field, is that you can extend it. You have a couple places where you can extend this field. You can add your custom option here. So you could bring in, I don't know, let's say you need to get some information from a third-party system. You could create your custom button here on the menu, and you can expose that to your editors. In this example, we also have a word count extension here that will show you the words that you're typing. But you could add your own extensions to this field type. What else do I get here, right? Like as you know, as an editor, you will be making your changes, right? So let's say you change the promo bar, and now you're gonna offer free shipping for all orders, right? No matter how much they spend, right? You can save that, right? And when you save the content, you're gonna see that the version here gets bumped, right? You get a new version every time you make a change. So let me do it again. And you're going to see that the version is going to bump into 33, right? The UI shows you the versions here, and you can get a comprehensive list of the versions available of this content. And from here, you can also compare. The UI will show you side by side both versions, and it will give you visual cues of what changed. This is in green, obviously, and in red, what changed. From here, you can also go back and say, you know, I want to see what changed from my original piece of content. And you're going to get, you know, more changes, obviously, because the content has changed quite a bit since you first created it. But basically here, I'm just showing you where the versioning lives in the new UI, right? And the things that you can do with it. You can also rename the version to something more meaningful. I don't know, live or webinar, right? That could be the name of your version, right? So it doesn't have to be a numeric version. And this could help your editors to actually get a better idea of what's the purpose of this version. I'm gonna put it back to version 33. And that's from a versioning perspective. The other drop down that you get here, it's the languages. So if your digital property or your implementation supports multiple languages, this is how you could access the different locales for this piece of content. If I were to go to the French version, which happens to be translated, that's how I would do it. If I go to you know, another French version, I can see that this one has not yet been translated, and this is how the UI tells you so. It tells you that this entry is unlocalized. If you would like to, you know, if let's say you work on your French editor as well, and you need to update this content, you'll simply, you know, write something here, and when you're ready to go, just hit save. The system is going to tell you that, you know, if you want to localize the entry, and if you localize the entry, then you have your French version ready to go. In here, the UI also shows you the different information about the entry. And the next thing I'm going to cover, actually, it's the sidebar here. So as an editor, you know, you're working on, let me go back to the English version. You'll spend more of your time again working on a page like this, right? Editing content, adding new elements to your page and whatnot. But sometimes you need to access extra information, right? This panel will give you that, right? This information panel will show you relevant details about the entry, things like who created it, when it was modified, and who changed it last, for example, and things like the localization status. So if you want to see whether this entry has been already translated, you can get access to that information here. This panel shows you more things. The homepage is not used everywhere because it's a single entry. But if you were working, let's say you're working on an author profile page, right? So let's say you're working on this author profile page. In that same informational panel, you get also the referencing information. So from here, you can identify where this content is being used. And, you know, from here, you can access those referencing items directly. Likewise, you can keep going, and I can see that this is also used in the homepage. And from here, I'm going to go back to my homepage. So going back to the editorial screen, right, and walking through the different options, the next option here is the status. In here, you can access the status of the publishing status of this entry. So if you want to know where this content has been published to and who did it, this is where you can get this information. Of course, the UI gives you search options in multiple places, right? So, you don't really need to know a lot to quickly identify things that you can do, because the UI again was focused on usability, right? There was a lot of discussions and feedback that was introduced to make it easier for you guys to manage your content easily, right? In a simple way. The next portion in here is workflow, but before I want to do that, I want to show you the collaboration features and how the UI handles those. As I said at the beginning of the webinar, I have a couple profiles, right? So let's say I'm an editor working on the homepage, but someone else gets into the system, goes to the homepage, and start working on it. The first thing they see is, these bubbles here. So basically, I'm telling this user that John Doe is working on this homepage. So right off the bat, you can see that someone else is working. So you might not want to touch this content without reaching out to that person. And you could do something like, okay, I'm going to work on the promo bar. So from here, you can say, hey, John, right? Can I work on the promo bar, right? And post something like this. Because of the fact you're mentioning this person in the comment, they will get an email, right? And they will be notified that a message is waiting for them. So from here, when the person goes back and start working, he can actually click the message, and he's gonna see the message here. If I reload, the icon shows that there's something there, and now I can see the message. And from here, I can communicate back and say, okay, I will let you work on this, right? And at this point, the person working on the entry can go back to the list and see the messages and can say, okay, I can resolve the entry. So this is one way you can collaborate and communicate with other users. The UI gives you the option to comment on every field. So that's quite granular. And the most important visual cue here is that you see that someone else is here, right? So if I go to the other user, he's going to see that, someone else is also working there. Likewise, let's say that you are not a person that likes to communicate and you start changing things. So let's say you change this into 50, right? And you save it. If someone else is in the editorial screen, they're going to get a pop-up that is going to tell them, hey, someone changed this. Okay, so let me bring in the changes, right? And the UI does a pretty good job letting you know who is doing what and things that might conflict with your workflow. So that's from a collaboration perspective. The discussions also show here. So there's nothing active because we just resolved that. But if I were to add a new comment and go back to the UI, right, that should show in the discussions panel, right? So as a best practice, as an editor, it's always good to check, the discussions panel and take a look or keep an eye on the icon, because it also gives you a visual cue on whether there's a comment or not. That's from a collaboration perspective. Before I get into the workflow section here, I want to touch on widgets, right? I think Nick also covers some of the extension points of the interface in his developer track or in his technical track. But I'm gonna just show you that this is an area on the UI that you can also extend the functionality. This is probably not the best example for an editor because it has a technical side to it, but you can pretty much bring any extension that you might think of, right? Or you can build your own, right? In the marketplace, we have some available that you might be able to use if the ones there integrate with third-party tools that you might be using. But you can also build your own, right? And in here, you can do things like, the typical example I always use is maybe you want to provide some documentation to your editors on how to fill the content, right? You could put links here, you could put access to documentation here, you could put, you name it. This is an empty canvas that you can put extensions on, and I just want you to be aware that that's something that you could do. that's from widgets. And, like I said earlier, this is where you're going to spend most of your time, right? And let's say you are working on the content and you're ready to make these changes reflect in the UI, right? The homepage is showing now that only orders over $100 get free shipping, but you want to make it available to all orders, right? So as an editor, you'll come here, make the changes, save the entry, right, and publish it out. You need to publish it, as you very well know, because otherwise the changes won't reflect. And this is the dialog for publishing, which I wanted to show you. In here, you have to choose three things. Sorry. You need to choose where you want to send the content to, right? These environments will be pre-populated for you based on your implementation. As an editor, you'll choose the right environment you're going to update by this publishing action. Then you need to choose which language you want to update, right? If you want to publish all the languages, you could do that, or you can do just English, which is what I'm going to do in this case. And the last option you have here is whether you want to publish it now or in the future. If you want to prepare some content that needs to go live tomorrow or next week, you can do that by scheduling a publishing action. I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to hit send. And this is pretty quick, right? So the content is already published. If I were to reload my page, I'll see that now all orders get free shipping. And that's basically, the day-to-day editorial experience. Obviously, in some cases, you might need some governance around how your content gets edited and how it gets published. And for that, we have workflow. In this example, I have a very simple workflow where you have 3 steps. So you start from the draft version, and you can say, this needs to be done by a given point in time, and you can assign it to someone. So I'm going to assign it to me or to John. I'm going to send it to John, actually, and I can notify him by email. I could also assign it to a given role. So anyone in this role should be able to take this task on. And as soon as I do this, please work on this and update my workflow. If I'm the other person, I can go to my tasks, and from here, I can see that this is the task that is assigned to me or more people, because I also assign it to content managers. And from here, I can go back to the entry and carry on with my work, right? So let's say I got the memo. I actually have the message from before. Let me remove that. And my workflow started, right? So someone tells you that no longer all orders, only those over $100 get free shipping. Let's say you update that, save the content, and you want to send this for review. You will pull up the workflow panel here, and from here you can say that this is ready for review, and you want to assign it to Nick or someone else, right? They will get an email and they can work on the entry, right, and move it to the next stage. Once he does that, he can actually put it to ready for production, right? And maybe you can say this needs to go live the 12th and so on. The idea here is that the UI gives you access to your workflow right here on the side panel. And from here, you can control how the entry navigates through that workflow. You can add comments, you can send it to different users, and so on. So the last part that I want to touch on is this guy over here, is the live preview. This experience is great, right? If you are a more traditional content manager, this is something that you're probably used to, having some form where you enter data, when you can edit your content, an easy way to navigate through the content that you're managing, and so on. But as part of the new UI, one of the highlights is actually live preview. So, I don't know if you noticed, but this site that I was showing you before, it's live preview enabled. And as I mouse over different things, I get this edit button. So even if I'm an editor and I just want to, let's say I want to change the text here, right? You just click here and it will take you to the editorial interface. It will open live preview and it will highlight for you the field that you need to, modify. And this is one of the highlights because it makes, your life a lot easier, and it, improves your experience as a content editor a lot. So The other good benefit or the other great feature is that you can, modify this, and you're going to see the changes taking place as you type, and I'm still in this change from Nick because that's what he said. So long story short, you can edit live your content, and you can see how it's going to look like right away. Obviously, you can, say, well, maybe I want to move this up. You can do that as well, and the UI will update accordingly. So the banner will move up, and this is, to me, in my opinion, one of the best of the best experiences that you can get when editing content. If you can see the changes taking place right away, this is something that makes a lot of our editors very, very happy. There's some limitations when it comes to live preview. And those are described in the documentation. Things like depending on the technology that you use, the stack that you use in your application and whatnot, there might be some limitations, but that's something that you can reach out to our support team or to your customer success manager to find out more. But basically, this is the live preview experience. Likewise, the actual workflow of content management is the same. So once you're happy with your changes, maybe you don't like this up there, let's put it back down, right? So let's say that now you like your content, you have to do the same process, right? Now you save the entry, you can move it through workflow similarly like you did without using live preview, and then you'll need to publish, right? So if I were to publish, I can do that from here. I choose the environment, send it out. And if I reload, our experts are the best, and the changes should reflect right away. So I'm going to stop there. We're at the 45 minutes. I want to leave some minutes, 15 minutes for you guys to ask questions and address some of the questions that have been asked on the Q&A panel. Before I do that, I want to point out that these recordings are going to go out. We're going to send them to you, and we're going to post them also on the community. The community is something that our partners and pretty much anyone working with Contentstack and our internal teams have access to. And from here, you can actually access the community, right? And directly from the UI as well. And in there, you can ask your questions, express your use cases, and you'll get feedback from us directly and from other users that are actively working on the community. We'll put these recordings again there probably next week at some point, and we will also put the answers to the questions that I might not be able to answer today there as well. So with all that said, any questions that you might want me to address right now? Can you search? Yeah, go ahead.
We do have a question from Cindy Sung, and we are allowing her to speak. So go ahead, Cindy, with your question.
Sorry, I don't have any questions. I was just, I accidentally raised my hand.
That's okay.
Thank you, though.
Absolutely.
So there's one question there. You can sort your results by date, at least from where they were modified. I don't know if that answers your question, Karen. I see that in the panel there.
Cool. Yeah, Jaime, there's a question. It says, are we going to be getting a preview button, or do you have to publish to see your content?
I don't know if I understand the question. Do you mean while you edit your entry?
Yeah, they're saying like, are they going to be able to, like, what's the best way to preview content, and do you have to publish to preview content? So this is a split between live preview.
Right. So I would say, and this is a bit subjective, right? But I would rely on live preview, actually, right? You can fully implement this if you need to actually enable all the editorial help using live preview, but you could actually pull up live preview just to see the changes as you work without having to save or to publish the entry. That's your preview button, I guess. That's the answer. Also, as a side note, you can also access the page by using the URL field. Obviously, for this, you will need to publish, right? But this is how quickly you can get to the actual page on the different environments. Okay, by publish date. I don't think publish date is one of the fields here. Yeah, so I'll get back to you, Karen, on the publish date sorting capabilities. I think, I don't know if anyone of my team has an answer to that. I don't think you can do that from the UI necessarily. Nick, any thoughts?
Yeah, so you can't see it on the actual the fields, but when you actually do a search date, you can search by published at. It won't give you the exact times that you're looking for. So this would be a good thing for us to improve on the filtering.
Okay. So next question I'm gonna address is, when will the new version take over the old one? I assume that's the new UI version. It's already available. You can probably use it already. What I can tell you also is that the classic UI is going to go away at the end of the year. I think Connor is going to give you more accurate response to that as well.
Let's see. Steve has a question on, is the ordering of the content in an entry always reflected in the JSON response?
Yeah, that's a bit on the technical side of questions, but it doesn't, right? From a rule of thumb, you shouldn't rely on the structure of the content in the JSON response.
The only time you should rely on the structure is on grouping fields. So a group field or a modular block will keep structure for you.
Yeah, but the rest wouldn't, because you can move things around basically. So, you can add and remove a field or change the structure, and we don't guarantee that the API will keep that order, other than the two exceptions that Nick just pointed out. Not, I hope I say the name properly, Edvardas. No, there's no way to actually move the columns, or yes, there is. Is this what you were referring to? Well, this shows right there how easy the UI is to navigate. I hadn't done this myself personally, but you can actually move things around. Let's see what Angela is asking. Resize the columns. I don't think, not at this time, Angela. You cannot expand or collapse the columns on this view. You can switch from comfortable to compact. That will give you some more real estate if you have a larger list, but you cannot change the width of the column. They auto adjust to the content in their cells. Okay, I assume some of my peers are answering questions because I see some follow-ups in the panel. So you're saying, someone is saying that if I do that and then I go back, it shows you, no, it keeps the filtering. Catherine, I'm trying to answer your question. So are you saying that if I'm in the homepage, for example, right? Or let's do this, right? Let's filter some this, right? Let's say I want to work on my homepage, right? And now from here, I go to the homepage. If I go back, the previous selection remains. So I don't know if that's what you were asking. So you don't need to filter again.
Hi, yes. So my experience has been that if I go through labels, I get a component or something more narrowed down and then I'd go and edit it and go back, it would show me all entries, but that's not happening for you. So it might be, oh, it is, oh, is it happening to you?
No, it's not keeping the labels expanded, right? So let me do it again. So I go to the header, right? I work on the header. That's my header. I do something, go back. I do still get the header, but the selection here is not there. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. That's something that we could probably also address.
Yes, it seems like for me it shows all entries, but maybe I'll look at it again and file a ticket if it's happening. Thank you.
So Laura, on the captions to assets, images don't seem to come through the live preview. That could be an implementation problem, right? Because you need to, we don't necessarily show the captions or anything. It's just the HTML that you saw there. So for example, if I do this and I pull some images, you need to implement the alternate text for the image for it to show. I'm not 100% sure. You might be right. There might be a limitation because it's an iframe or the way we render the images here. But I'm pretty sure that if you provide with an alternate text, it will display in the live preview window, actually. And also from the UI perspective, also keep in mind that I'm zoomed in a little bit, so your experience might be better, actually. Let me go back to the normal view, right? I was actually zoom in so you could see better, and just be aware of that. So it used to, so I don't think there's more questions other than follow-ups that my team is actually addressing. So, if you don't have any further questions, we'll stop the recording and we'll share, as I said, the links to the recording as well as when we post it in the community. So you can go back and watch this track or Nick's rendition of the webinar, which is probably more technical, and it will cover things that you might have not seen here. All right. Thank you for attending today, guys. It was very nice to doing this for you, and I hope you enjoyed the webinar.